how to use a recipe within a recipe. So let's say that you've created a recipe previously and now you want to use that as an ingredient within another recipe. So say you had done some sort of chicken dish and now you're adding that chicken dish into a recipe later on for a soup. There's not really a way to do this with a quick button, but there is a way that we can kind of get around it. So I'm going to go to the bottom where I click on My Foods, and whatever recipe that I'm using as an ingredient for the next recipe, I'm just going to take a real quick screenshot of the information. So the 450 grams of the total recipe, the proteins, carbs, and fats, and I don't really need the calories because it's going to do it itself later. So I'm just going to create a custom entry for this item. So I know that the serving size is 450 grams, 3.2 grams of protein, 42.8 grams of carbs, and 1 gram of fat. So I'm going to go into My Foods, create a food, recipe 1 ingredient. I know that it was a serving size of 450 grams. It had 1 gram of fat. I believe it was 32.8 grams of carbs, and I think 3.8 grams of protein. If those don't match, I would have made sure that they match. So we'll just leave it as is. And now I'm going to save to My Foods. So now when I go back into my recipes, it was 42.8 grams. Sorry, my apologies. Anyways, I'm going to go back into my recipes. I'm going to hit create a recipe. Now I'm doing a new one, recipe number 2, and I'm going to add ingredients the same as I would normally. So I hit add ingredients. I'm going to go under My Foods, and recipe number 1 is right there. I'm going to go down to 1 gram, and whatever amount of the initial recipe that I'm now adding to my new one, I'm going to put in here, add ingredient. So if I'm finished adding my ingredients, now I've got my new recipe, and the original recipe that I wanted to use is now one of my ingredients there. So that is how I would add one recipe into another, or essentially build a recipe within a recipe.